Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Tim here with the TMA Connection, your podcast that is focusing on the people and things that are making a difference in the lives of others. And today, we're going solo, man. We are solo in the studio today. Got a couple episodes that we're going to be shooting, and just some important things that I want to kind of get out to you guys in this crazy market that we're in. So thanks for joining us. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I would greatly appreciate if you subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you download a podcast. And we're also on YouTube at the Markland Advantage. Subscribe there. We're trying to get those subscriberships up. So help us out there. It would be awesome. But let's get into today's episode. I want to really dive in on pricing your home the right way to get maximum results. And, you know, not necessarily is there a right or wrong way. I think it just kind of depends on the situation that you're in, as well as what's going on in the market. So, but for right now, we are in a market right now where there's not a whole lot of inventory out there, and there's still demand, but buyers are very, very educated in what home values are. They're looking at platforms like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, all those different websites, Homes.com. But those estimates aren't necessarily always true. We're going to talk a little bit about the algorithm, talk about how they're calculating that estimate online, but it's really important that you have a professional that's going to be pulling comparables of what your house is, because when an appraiser comes, they're also going to do the same thing. And so pricing it correctly is going to be absolutely paramount to the success of your real estate transaction. So the first thing I want to say is that the price and photos are probably your first impression of when you sell your home. And so with people being educated as far as what home values are going for, if you try to go for a number that's a lot higher, buyers aren't even going to even consider looking at the house. And I think sometimes people have the thought that, we'll start high and then we'll negotiate down low. And in certain areas of business and sales, maybe that is the correct approach. But in real estate, what you find is it's actually the opposite approach, where, again, people aren't going to come out, they're not even going to entertain coming out to look at the house if they feel that it's overpriced. So really getting a good education as to what home values are going for around your neighborhood based on, the type of house that you have, the location of your house, the structure, whether it's detached, semi-detached, townhome, and a group townhome and stuff like that. You definitely want to try to compare apples to apples as much as possible. Now, there are those homes out there that are a dime a dozen. They're very unique. In situations like that, sometimes what we'll do is we'll call in an appraiser. We'll call in an appraiser. They'll come in and they'll appraise the property. But basically, when it comes down to it, we need to have an attractive price to attract people to come into the house without putting you at risk of pricing it too low, but certainly not putting it at risk where we're pricing it way too high and not even getting people to come out and look. So in this market, I would say you would want to price it at market, or you would want to price it just maybe a little bit below, because another thing to consider is when you get an offer and you get multiple offers, the competition will then drive up the price, and people are more willing to go higher when they are competing against other people. But another thing you're not thinking about too is not just the price of what you're going to get for your home, but contingencies of what you're going to get. Now, I'm not advocating for this by any means, but there are buyers out there that are waiving their inspection to purchase a house. Now, if you have two offers that are, say $5,000 apart, and one's waiving the inspections, and that one's a little bit lower in price, you might consider the value of not having inspections and opening up a potential can of worms by accepting an offer that's maybe a little bit less in price, but they're waiving that contingency. Okay, there are other offers out there that are either waiving the appraisal completely because they have enough money down, or they are doing what's called an appraisal gap contingency to say, okay, if the house appraises less than what the purchase price is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, me, the buyer, I'm going to make up the difference up to a certain point. So I might say I'll have a $10,000 gap appraisal. So if it appraises for anything less than the purchase price, up to a maximum of $10,000, I'm willing to make up that difference. Now, again, that's given you, the seller, a little bit more security in knowing that when we get to that hurdle, if it does appraise for less, that person's going to be willing to make up that difference. So again, yes, there's a lot with price, but there's also a lot with the contingencies that come with an offer. Another one is a home sale contingency. Somebody needs to sell their home. Well, now we're completely relying on another party being able to settle in order for them to buy your home. So it's more than just price. Certainly the number one goal is probably going to be the amount of money that you're going to walk away with when you leave the settlement table. But these are some other considerations that take place if you price it correctly. So if you're pricing it at market or just below market value, you'll have more buyers come in, and you'll have more people that may be willing to waive some contingencies, which are going to strengthen the offer and maybe make for a smoother selling process for you. So just something to think about there. This episode is sponsored by the Markland Advantage with Cummings & Company Realtors. When you're ready to make a move, give us a call. We'd love to help you out in the buying and selling process. If you'd like more information, simply message us or email tim@themarklandadvantage.com. Now back to the show. Now, we talked about, if you do overprice, there's certainly a consequence of the house sitting on the market longer. And right now in the Maryland area, in Harford County, we're looking at approximately about an average days on market of 21 days. Now, if you've overpriced it, that number's certainly going to be higher. So, your real estate agent comes in and says, okay, here are the comps, and this is what these homes are selling for in this neighborhood, and you come up with a value, that there are some sellers who will say, well, I want to get higher than that. And that might be great if we can find somebody, but then we also got to remember Mr. or Mrs. Appraiser needs to come in, and they need to value that there too. And if they can't find the comps to support that higher purchase price, then we're at a point where if we don't have an appraisal waiver, then at that point in the process, either you will need to come down, or the buyer's going to need to come up to the purchase price and bring extra cash to the table, or there's a meeting of minds somewhere in the middle. So pricing it too high can also run you the risk of just hitting that hurdle in the process. But again, with the average days on market, the longer your house is sitting on the market, the more of a black eye it is on the house, as buyers are saying, as to what's wrong with the house. If the house has been on the market for a while, people might not even come out to look at it because they're thinking that there's something wrong with it. So again, in a lot of different sales situations, it is sometimes good to start high and negotiate down, but in real estate, it's really in the opposite direction. And sometimes that's a hard one to commit to when you're looking to price your house. If we make a mistake and we've completely underpriced it, the market's going to correct it. The market is the market, and your house is only worth what the market's willing to pay for it. And if it was somehow priced too low, you're going to get a lot of buyers coming in and bidding that up as well. So even heard one story where somebody priced it like $100,000 below what comps are. And of course, once you pull the comps, you see that, hey, this house is going to go for a heck of a lot more. Now, I'm not recommending that you price your house $100,000 less by any means. I just think that you need to get it as close to market value as possible to give you the best results in price as well as contingencies. Now, talked a little bit about the online estimates like the Zillow's estimate, the Realtor.com, and Redfin estimates. And sometimes, when I go to a listing appointment, I look at those three because those are the big three that people look at online, and it's good to have an understanding of what the consumer is looking at when they're looking at houses, but it's not necessarily what we use to price your house. And sometimes if you have a house that's in a community where there are different types of houses, so you have condos, you have townhomes, you have single-family homes, when Zillow or any of these other online estimating tools, they basically stick a pin in the property and then they draw a circle around that property, and they take everything that's within that circle and they come up with a value. Well, if you have townhomes, single family homes, condos, and all different types of homes, split level, rancher, colonial, and you're taking all of those into consideration, the numbers could be skewed. And so it is very important that when you do a marketing analysis that you're comparing colonials to colonials or ranchers to ranchers or single family to single family, and not mix a whole bunch of different types into the value to try to figure out how much a house is worth, because that's sometimes very wrong. So sometimes Zillow is pretty darn close, and those other ones, and there are other times when they're not so much that close. So to get a good educated opinion on value, we as real estate agents do try to mimic as much as possible what appraiser would come out and look at. But even with appraisers, you could come in to a house, especially a unique house, and it's an educated opinion. And so, with 3 different appraisers, you're going to have 3 different values. And hopefully those values are within a certain margin of error, say. But, if it is one of those unique properties, we would certainly call in some of the big dogs, the ones that are really, really educated in this stuff. And we have connections to people that really, really do a phenomenal job with evaluating those properties that are, that are very unique in nature. So the other thing is sometimes people want to price high and they're like, well, we can reduce the price. And sometimes, hey, look, if you want to try on the higher side, let's give it a shot. It doesn't work more than it does work, but there have been a handful of times in my 10-year career where somebody went to price it higher than what I was recommending, and they ended up getting it or getting more. But for the majority of the time, 90-some% of the time, I would say that somebody's looking at getting a price reduction. And as much as we try to preface the conversation and the experience with, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's see what happens. If we want to start at your price, let's start at your price. Give it a couple weeks. Let's see where we are. We get to that 2-week point. We haven't had many showings. We haven't had any offers, and we've gotten feedback that it's priced too high. Sometimes sellers are resistant at that point to reduce the price. And so we try to have that conversation up front, but it's a challenge to again reduce, make that price reduction. But you're not losing anything when you do that. You're only, if you have to drop the price $5,000 or $10,000 or however much it is, you're not losing anything because you never had it in the first place. Again, the market's going to dictate how much a house is worth, and so if we're not getting showings, if we're not getting action, if we're not getting activity, if we're not getting offers, then it's either it's a condition of price, property condition, or some anomaly that's going on where maybe the next door neighbor has a junkyard, or there's a water tower right next to the house, and that's something that's bothering a lot of people. But if it's not compelling as far as the price or the condition, it's not going to be selling. So think about that when you're looking to price your house. If you need some upgrades and you're not willing to do the upgrades, then that's fine. But it's hard to get top price if you're not willing to do the top level behavior that needs to be done. So take that into consideration when you go to price the house, that maybe we need to price it a little bit lower because this house had updated kitchens and bathrooms where maybe we need a little bit more updating, and so we're going to price that accordingly. So again, something to think about right there. I'll give you a real life experience here. Was working with a seller, and we basically, this was years ago, so this is well out of the picture, nobody recently, but basically gave a price range of $325,000 to $350,000. That's where we need to be, and they wanted to start on the high side, which is fine. Let's have that conversation. If we need to reduce the price in a couple of weeks, we're not getting a lot of action, then we need to reduce it, and we need to have a decent price reduction. I mean, if you're a buyer and you're looking and you see $10,000 price reduction, that's a heck of a lot better than $2,500. So when you do a price reduction, you want something that's significant. And so we talked about that in the very beginning, and then they wanted to just reduce it by $2,500. So now we're down to $347,500. Now, granted, we brought 2 offers at that point for $330,000. That fell within the range of what we felt the market value was, but they did not want to take that offer. They felt that they could get more. And then after a few more price reductions, they ended up getting another offer for $310,000, and we were probably priced around $325,000 at that point, and they didn't want to take that. So we ended up parting because I will tell you that if it's priced too high, it's not because of the marketing. It's not because we're not communicating the listing out or anything like that. It's priced too high. And that person hired another real estate agent, and then that real estate agent got fired. And then the third one came in, and the long end of the story is they ended up getting $300,000 for their house when they had two offers for $330,000 a few months before, and just didn't heed the advice of what we were talking about and how we prepared our strategy for pricing. So it's just so important to price correctly and be conservative with it. Your results will be a lot better if you're conservative in your pricing. So that's today's lesson. Hopefully you got some value out of that. If you have questions about your specific situation, certainly you can reach out to us. You can either go to our website, which is themarklandadvantage.com, or you can email me, tim@themarklandadvantage.com. We're on all the social media platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, all at the Markland Advantage. And so please connect with us there. Follow us. Give us a share, a like, a comment. Start the conversation in the chats. We're always open for conversation. Remember, there's no definite right or wrong. It's what's most comfortable for you. So not to say all situations where we should price it at market. There are times when you should price it maybe a little bit above market. But in the grand scheme of things, when we go to price your house, we want a smooth transaction that brings you the most buyers possible with the least amount of headaches, with the least amount of hurdles to jump through. And that has been our claim to success over the past 10 years. So if we can help you out, again, give us a call. Thank you for joining us today on this solo podcast, which is quite awkward, just completely just talking to the camera right now. But if you are someone is making a difference out in the community, and we need to either promote their business or promote their charity or their organization or just something really cool and interesting that they're doing, please tag them in the comments or have them reach out to me, because we're looking to book more interviews for up until the end of the year. And so let's get more people on here that are putting out some good things into the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, live your life to the fullest, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Did you like this episode of the TMA Connection? Well, you might want to check this one out right here. Go ahead. Click it. Go ahead.